Hello, today I'm gonna start this recipe with a story, with an anecdote. When I was in middle school, I had to select an elective at school, and I chose cooking class. And not because I was particularly interested in that subject, I just wanted an easy credit. And I thought that it was gonna be maybe fun at best. And so I started taking my cooking classes. Back then, like 40 years ago, the style of the cooking that I was shown or trained to do at the time, it was a lot of the French style, cooking, learning how to do hors d'oeuvres and I don't know, delicious dishes, but it was more into that style of cooking. And so I didn't get to really practice it until one summer that my mom went on a vacation, on a trip for a week or so. So I volunteered to cook for my dad. And back in Mexico, the main meal is lunch. So my dad will come from work and to eat. So I will be, more than ready to start cooking for him, to cook for him. And so I was so excited to show him what I learned. So it was, I think that's when I started developing the love of not only cooking, but cooking for people, for the people that I love. Because it just gave me such a big joy to see him, how excited he was to try what I was cooking. And he will come out and get home. He will get home and will ask what's for lunch, and I will be so proud to show him what I did. And I'm sure that some of those dishes weren't as good as he made it seem, but regardless, I felt such joy. So one day he asked me, hija, ¿sabes cómo cocer frijoles? Do you know how to cook beans? I didn't. So this week, let's go back to basics. Beans it is. I'm going to use pinto beans, but you can use black beans, navy beans, any beans that you like. It's more common to find pinto beans where I live, so pinto beans it is. We're gonna put these beans to soak for 5-6 hours in the fridge. You can leave them in the counter only if your house is cool, because if it's warm, the beans can start fermenting. So you're gonna see bubbling and frothy on top. If that happens, toss them. They're no good. So to be safe, stick them in the fridge 5-6 hours. Today, we're gonna do frijoles de la olla, which translates to beans from a large pot. But all beans are cooked on a large pot, so I'm not really sure about the name, but frijoles de la olla is beans from scratch. And it's a very simple recipe, and for a simple recipe I'm going to give you a lot of tips and shortcuts and things like that. soaking the beans serves two purposes. First and foremost, it gets rid of the gas, gets rid of the starch that the beans have, and by soaking it and throwing away the water, not cooking it in the water, will avoid or minimize gases. If you soak them, the cooking time will reduce to an hour. So it pays off. These are the beans after 5-6 hours of soaking. And as you can tell, they are double its size. They are double its size. And look, so what I'm gonna do right now is throw away this water and I'm gonna rinse them up again. Alrighty? Stay at the end because I'm going to show you how to do two different ways to eat your beans. One is refried beans and a very simple charro beans recipe. Okay, it can have multiple ingredients, charro beans, but the one that I use is very simple and it's very good. It's typically the one that you eat at restaurants. Let's get rid of this water. Let's add the beans. To get the perfect beans, you only need 4 ingredients. Beans, water, salt, and garlic. The rest, anything else is optional. So if you add those 4 things, you're set. They're gonna be good, okay? And of course, heat. So this is the very basic. And we're gonna add the water. You have to make sure that you have at least 3 inches of water when you're cooking pre-soaked beans, because it's an hour of cooking. But if it's not soaked beans, but if it isn't pre-soaked beans, then you probably will need more water, but you can always add as you go. But always remember, if you're going to be adding water, you have to add hot water, because if you add tap water, you're going to set back the temperature of your pot, and that's going to add minutes to the cooking. Alrighty, so if you don't have time to pre-soak your beans and you want to cook beans last minute, at this point, put just these 2 ingredients, beans and water, take them to the stove for 20 minutes, okay? Have them rolling boil for 20 minutes and then throw away that water because that gets rid of the starch, okay? And for this amount, it's about a half of a head of garlic. You can half of an onion. Any onion will do. Purple onion, yellow onion, white onion. It's a little bit tricky to say how much of salt because it depends on the salt you're using. I use kosher salt, so it's less salty. So I don't know, if you use table salt, the refined one, that can be saltier. So I think I will start with a tablespoon of salt, okay? You can always add more. You'll see a lot of people saying that if you salt your beans at the beginning, either it delays cooking or they don't grab the salt as well. I always add my salt from the beginning and they always come out great. This is a trick to extend the life of your beans, because once the beans are done, if you have them in the fridge, unfortunately, the shelf life is very short. If you don't eat them in about 5 days, they'll spoil. And let me tell you, they're gonna tell you they spoil because the smell, pretty bad. So if you add a couple of tablespoons of oil at this time or during the cooking, that's gonna extend the shelf life in the fridge for about a week, 10 days. That's why I separate my beans and I have a small portion, the portion that I know I'm gonna eat, and then the rest I freeze. Another tip that you can try is adding a couple of pieces of bacon. Okay, just dump it in there. You don't have to fry them, just dump it in there. Also, the fat from the bacon is going to act as the preservative. Another tip for flavor is, instead of salt, you can use chicken bouillon with tomato. This brown is pretty good, so I add a tablespoon, a heaping tablespoon of this. And especially if you are not going to do any other recipe with this, that in itself is going to give it an amazing taste, and you're going to love the flavor. Cooking beans is a very forgiving recipe. If you don't have fresh garlic or onion, don't worry. You can use a couple of tablespoons of powdered garlic and a couple of heaping tablespoons of onion powder. That will do. I don't like to use garlic salt or onion salt because I like to control my salt. You can also use, I have this beautiful powder too. This is a poblano pepper powder, and it's delicious. So I just add a couple of tablespoons, and that will give it an amazing taste. Now let's take him to the stove for an hour. Once it starts boiling, you're going to reduce the heat to medium heat, and then you're gonna cover it. But you are not gonna cover it entirely. Just make sure that it's just like this, not completely covered, because then it's gonna start boiling and spilling over. And so just keep it like this for the whole time, okay? So I changed my mind and I decided to use one of my best friends in the kitchen, which is my Instapot. It's kind of hot today, so I don't want to heat up my house because when I cook beans, that's one of the things that it heats up your kitchen, but my house is too small. So I'm going to use my Instapot. I'm gonna transfer these. Keeping full. For pre-soaked beans on the Instapot, you only need about an inch of water, okay, above the bean level. Make sure that you have like about an inch of water. It requires way less water than in the regular stovetop method. Oh, I'm gonna add the oil. One. Close the vent and follow your bean instructions. Mine has presets, so for beans, it's about, for pinto bean, it's about 35 minutes. And the beans are done. 35 minutes. That's it. Oops. Look how delicious they are. You know that the beans are done when, as you can see, they start breaking apart. And of course, to the touch. Completely tender. Delicious. Look at them. Perfectly done. The ingredients for the charro beans. a diced medium-sized onion, diced medium-sized tomatoes, and a handful of cilantro to taste. It can be, my husband loves cilantro, so I can even do like 2 handfuls. And optional, it's going to be diced jalapenos. Leave the seeds if you like the heat, or seed it. Also, banana peppers. I love banana peppers. Again, this is optional. You don't have to. They don't bring any heat. It's just taste. I just throw them in there like whole. Boom. You'll see. It's gonna be yummy. We're gonna start with the bacon. As you can see, I don't have any fat because the bacon is gonna render a lot of fat. So medium heat. And the bacon is done. Look at it. Nice brownish, golden. And I think that's a lot of fat that we don't need, so I'm going to remove it. We add the onion. We saute the onion for about a minute. It's nice and caramelized. Now the tomatoes. A little bit of salt. Just a little bit, because the bacon already has plenty of salt. Let's add chopped jalapenos. The banana peppers, you can dice them. I'm just gonna poke a little hole. We're gonna cover it and let it simmer for about 5-10 minutes. Medium heat. The smell is divine. I'm sorry. Last thing is the cilantro. And we turn it off and set it aside. I'm gonna add a little bit of cumin. This is optional and something that's gonna give it so much flavor. Chipotle. It's a chipotle, it's smoked jalapeno in a tomato sauce. Comino, cumin. Just a little bit. What is it like? Just to taste. Maybe a pinch. We're gonna use the little fat render from the bacon. It's about probably maybe a tablespoon. It's not a lot. Let's see. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more of oil. Just a tiny bit. Okay, hot enough. Look how nice and thick. You're gonna have to stir. Don't move away. Turn to medium heat. If it gets too hot, it's going to start like splattering and it can burn. So just make sure to reduce the heat. It's about 5 minutes. Can you see how it's bubbling? Big bubbles. That's pretty much a good sign that it's done. We're gonna turn it off. Look at it, how good. Very nice and thick. Look at the frijolitos, charros. And we're ready. The best part, the taste test. Let's start with the charro beans. So delicious. It doesn't mean anything else. The bacon gives it such an awesome smoky taste, and then the rest of the vegetables is just perfect, nothing else. Typically the charro beans have more protein. They can add wieners to it or sausage, and also they add chicharrones. They can pack it with protein, which is nothing wrong if that's what you like. But I'd rather have something like this. It needs nothing else. The fried beans. This is just one way to eat it, with a chalupa or a tostada. A little bit of panela cheese. I love panela cheese. A little tomato. I'm using some salsa, which I have plenty on my fridge, but hey. What do you guys think? Isn't this easy? It's a super practical way to have beans at hand, and so I strongly encourage you to do it. It's so delicious. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna dance afterwards. Look, Daddy, I finally learned.